I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And JT is off in the technology. He doesn't have a microphone today. So we'll say his dad jokes for him. He can just tell them to us.
We can't keep up with that pace. Sorry.
His brain moves too quickly for us. But you might notice we have more people here at our little seance table today. Woohoo! Also, if you haven't noticed, if this is the first episode you're watching in this space, this is our new little studio. We're going to be continuously decorating it with more haunted objects. And actually, Patrick and Courtney here brought us some graveyard dirt from the Devil's Tramping Ground.
Ooh.
Please throw it gently.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, God. I am not very coordinated. I'm going to pull it out of its little packaging. But yes, they brought us some treats, some spooky treats. So we have a shovel. And lay dirt. Courtney actually harvested this herself. So very, very fun. That is one of the objects that will be going on the walls. Allegedly, we're getting Ouija boards and dolls as well, and it's fun. Yes.
Hair junkies are decorating it.
Yes. So, so there you go. Stay tuned for that. I'm just gonna hold my shovel for the rest of the episode. But yeah, so Courtney and Patrick are actually from the Paranormal Society of Savannah. You've seen Patrick before. Courtney, is this your first time on the show?
It is.
Yeah. So they recently went and did an investigation at Black Salem Church, which is honestly the creepiest name for a church you could possibly pick.
I know.
I'm like, doesn't that seem like against the rules? I don't know.
I was thinking the same thing. We pulled up and looked it up. I'm like, this is not right.
they asked for the hauntings and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Yep. Also, y'all just went to the Lizard Man convention
in Bishopville, South Carolina.
Very nice.
There you go.
All right. Well, before we get into today's episode, we'll talk a little bit about those experiences as well. But this is going to be another installment in our Halloween series. Halloween. Yeah, we've rehearsed.
It's become tradition.
It's become a tradition. We've rehearsed it. So,
That's cool.
It's very organic, actually.
yes, it really wasn't planned for the first episode that we filmed, and then all of a sudden it happened. So it's here now. But anyway, so for that particular topic, we're going to be talking about Judd Trail and Jackass Ginger Pond, which is basically considered the second Morgan's Corner. So if you haven't listened to Morgan's Corner, that episode, go listen to that first, and then come back, because they say this is like the baby sibling of Morgan's Corner.
Morgan's Corner
2. Junior. So, The sequel. So before we get into that, tell us about your investigation. What brought you out there?
So we were going for the Lizard Man Festival. We've always wanted to go. And so anytime we go to an event like that, we're always looking for places nearby that's supposedly haunted. So Courtney is our little, fact checker and nice. Getting on there and trying to find the most creepiest and the most haunted place around. And she found that church, and I was like, let's go for it. So as soon as Lizard Man was over, we went back to our hotel rooms, freshened up, and headed right back out.
Very nice.
It was fun.
So what's like the main haunting with that church?
So you got 3 supposedly haunted, spirits that roam. You got a 8-year-old boy who is said to be at the very front gate. You can see him crying. You can also hear him. It's also, you got the Southern Belle, who's at the back of the graveyard. No one really knows exactly what she's just a lady.
Sure.
Just all they say. Can't really say nothing about her. But she is also known to cry, and she talks. She's very talkative. we didn't capture her this time, but we also heard that the priest of the very first church that was originally there also haunts the cemetery. Because his family was killed off by the plague.
Oof.
Oh.
So he's the last standing alive, and apparently he resorted to rituals and went against God. So he was. Wow. Yeah, that's the story
very
on that
well
one.
kept up.
Really?
It is.
Yeah,
it's
very
pretty.
well. The cemetery itself, when you first walk in through the gate, we've got a couple videos I think we've posted. That as soon as you come through the gate, it's very eerie. Even though it's so manicured, it's a weird feeling you get the further you walk back. It's like you're walking back in time.
Wow.
Yeah, and one of the we were doing little EVP sessions, and we had one of the cat balls with us, and we asked it, if there's anything here, can you? And it went off, and just to make sure that Courtney didn't move or whatnot, she tapped the
I'll sit on
the
a
bench.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the concrete bench, and it didn't go. So we made note of that, like, hey, and then she asked, was that you that did it? And the REM pod went off. So, and then, for a while we were getting great stuff for 5-10 minutes, and then it just quit.
Wow.
Just quit.
Kid ghosts love the cat balls. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best thing for them. I swear.
Because
Better
it's a toy. It's recognizable. Yeah.
And
Especially
the
in
Boo
older.
Bears
Yeah.
are really good too.
the Boo Bears freak me out. I don't know.
Tell
I
me
just.
about it. The ones that speak.
Oh
no.
God.
And the Boo Bears only go back a certain distance in time because the regularity of stuffed animals and things like that is like, where does it fall? But a ball is,
Right.
has been around forever. There've been balls, that children played with for a long time. So as a toy, when you start thinking of like objects that can relate to children, and you think about, is it past 100 years? Is it past 200 years? Am I looking at like a colonial era, ghost? What can I say that makes sense to them?
Instead of just
Right.
like a box of
Right.
whatever electronic device you got on the table.
Here's a ball. Here's
Literally.
a tin soldier. Here's
Oh yeah, I never even thought about that. A soldier.
Tin shoulder, yeah. Now we couldn't stay after dark because there are signs everywhere that says can't be here after dark. We will prosecute. So sometimes we're kind of like, okay, well, we'll stay until it kind of gets dark or whatever. But there's cameras everywhere.
well, and that tells you a lot right there.
Right.
Because my guess is they had to do that because
Exactly.
In fact, it got vandalized. So
Right,
come to
exactly.
find out, it got like badly vandalized about 2017. It was awful. So after that, they kind of got really into the.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
watch it over
absolutely,
it.
and that tells you that the stories were compelling enough for people to go out there, but people don't generally have a lot of respect for the property. They show up and they're like, I'm going to get a piece of a gravestone from a haunted cemetery.
Right.
That's actually what happened at Colonial Park Cemetery. The reason why we lock it at 8 p.m. is because of just mass vandalism. The 80s were so full of people breaking in, and there are stories of like people like literally pulling bones out of those crypts and stuff. And
That's
it's
a
like,
great way to get haunted.
it's a great way to get
Yeah,
haunted.
it's a really good way.
Well, and the for those of you who go to Colonial Park Cemetery, there are these things that kind of look like rooftops, and they are. They are rooftops because it actually goes down in the ground. There were, as late as the 80s, I think you could actually walk down into them, but they filled them up. they were like, no more of that. We don't want people to just kind of have access to these.
Yeah, and that's cool. And so we kind of sent a letter. Next time we go next year, we're asking permission if we can go after dark.
Right.
We carry insurance as well, just
That's
in
great.
case.
That's so smart.
Yeah, and we try to do everything by the book. And hopefully they'll agree to it, or they may say, no, we've already got enough attention out here.
That's
So,
true.
which
That's one of the hardest things is where do you draw the line between honoring and exploiting, and,
Right.
and the fear of, well, we don't want everyone in the state to show up in our small little community, cemetery, especially if it's still being used, especially if it's still, an active cemetery.
The cemetery is, and the funny thing is the church, we went by like around 10 a.m. when we were leaving, just to kind of get a few more pictures and whatnot. And there was no service. So
They
there's
don't
no
have active services there.
yeah, there's no
Oh,
active service, but you know, we respected it. We came, took some photos, and just came back to Savannah. So,
Interesting.
but the lizard man is the main reason why we went. You know, I had an experience.
Oh.
You know,
Ooh,
like
a lizard man experience.
yeah, it was like 87, 88. I was like 15 years old, and I grew up in Georgetown, and there's nothing to do back then. It was not like it is now. So there used to be this old dirt road that you could go into the back way of the Forest River, you know. So that place wasn't built, but they had a dock that was built back there, and it would take us about an hour and 20 minutes to get there. We're carrying, you know, fishing poles and nets and things. So we did this several times. One day we went, me and a couple buddies, and we were coming back. It was starting to get dark. So we were trying to hurry up because you're cutting through the woods and the marsh. And we come, and my buddy says, "What is that?" And, you know, we were like, "What?" And he said, "That." And we looked around the corner. I thought it was an alligator walking on two legs. I honestly did, because there's alligators everywhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it stopped, looked at us, and made a dash for the marsh, hit the water really hard. We dropped everything and took off running. And when I remember looking, thinking, it's going to come get us. I saw the water rippling. So we got back home, and my dad was like, "Where's my cast net?" And I was like, "It's back at the," he's like, "You better go get it." I'm like, "No." And so he went back with us, and he saw the tracks and everything. And again, this is 87, 88 in the summertime.
Sure.
And he was like, "Wow," you know, and he saw the marsh laid down and everything. So we grabbed everything and left. The funny thing is, a few months later, there was this news report where this teenager was, I guess, changing his tire or something late at night, and this lizard creature attacked his car.
I remember that.
And I was like, "Oh my God, that's exactly what we kind of saw." So, you know, that was my little experience. And, you know, he didn't come after us or anything like that. But, you know, and a couple other people back then said, yeah, you know, they had seen similar things. But what we had noticed is that river actually runs to the PD, and it runs straight down to like the skateboard swamp. So we kind of put all those things together a couple years ago, and we were like, we've got to go. So when they started the festival back up after COVID, we were like, we got to go. So we went, and yeah, we met some really cool people.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So what exactly is the Lizardman Festival like? I mean, what is their, you know, major draw pull? Is it people sharing stories? Is it a
Well, you know, the town is split. Like, there's a lot of people that we talked to, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't believe it. You know, this is bull."
Right.
And
Of course.
and we get it. You know, they don't want like that kind of attention, but it's lots of friendly atmosphere. We had a nice little table set up. We sold some Lizard Man T-shirts. You know, from what I remember of what I saw, and everybody was real friendly. You know, they were selling Lizard Man items. It was a great little festival. They had a little parade, and next year I think
so
we'll try to
cute.
get in it. Yeah, it's a little parade. You know, you get little lizards. You know, little kids in lizard suits walking around.
That's
and
awesome.
It was a lot of fun. I got to.
Photos for that.
Yes.
I will.
It's on their Facebook page.
I love it.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, this guy was selling Lizard Man statues, and but he sold out. But I'm big into Bigfoot,
Oh, sure.
Right.
so I had to buy the Bigfoot, and yeah, telling my wife I had to make sure Courtney and Miss Sharon was with me when I was telling her I just bought a Bigfoot that weighs about 300 pounds. So
Oh no,
that
yeah,
thing
a
is
big
huge.
Bigfoot.
That is a massive foot.
yeah.
That is a whole foot.
No one can hear me, but can you tell them the story that I saw out the window living in Georgetown?
Which one?
The
The
one-
the wombat?
No, the thing crawling across the.
Come here and have
I
a
know.
seat in my seat.
Wait,
Because I didn't know
wombat.
you saw that.
Yeah, so JT's seen
Wait.
a lot of critters out in Georgetown. Go ahead.
So
Tell
I
the story.
also somewhat grew up in Georgetown because of I went to Savannah Arts Academy and whatnot, and so from our front window on Rice Mill, I saw, it was like super late. I saw this gargantuan it looked like a massive alligator, but it was too big and too high up to be an alligator, but it walked on all fours, and I could not tell what it was. And it was just the most ridiculous thing. And I was like, there's just no way anyone is going to believe me.
Yep.
Like, there's just no way. So I just didn't really, tell it. And now I have this show. But yeah, now I can tell it on this. No one judged me.
Maybe you did
But-
see
The lizard
been
man.
lizard
You
man.
could have.
Well, and that's just interesting because Georgetown got built up so much,
Yeah.
but there was a time when it was a maze of dirt tracks and weird little buildings that were just out there and falling apart, and the old dock that would was obviously a part of someone's property, but you couldn't tell, but it'd be the perfect place to hide,
True.
for these,
Exactly.
if something wanted to be out of the way, there was a time. But
was
it got
very
super built up
secluded.
now.
Yeah, it was back then. There was dirt roads everywhere.
Yep.
There was one way in Georgetown, one way out. It was blocked off right at Kings Grant, and you couldn't go any further.
Right.
And me and my buddies, we had nothing to do. And then where the Mormon church is, and there's like a Dollar General now and all that. That was like a humongous hill. I don't know if you guys remember that. It was
I do.
a humongous hill. And we go up there and play, King of the Mountain and stuff. Skip school, go up there, and like, look at those suckers going to school, But, that was a place for us to hang out. We play war and stuff, but we would see the weirdest things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the things happened because, like you said, rice mill and everything, that's where a lot of the plantations were, a lot of the Indian tribes, Native Americans and things. So they just kind of bulldozed those over and built houses all around out there.
Oh, yeah.
So, there's a lot of spooky stuff in Georgetown. You talk to people in Georgetown.
Well, it
they'll
was
tell
the
you,
outskirts of town is where people who did not want to be found lived.
Right.
Right.
I spent years looking for a witch's cabin in those woods, in that network of woods, because we had heard, through urban legend, through people talking that there was this old ramshackle shack out in the middle of the woods in the Georgetown wilderness.
Did you find it?
We weirdly enough, when they were doing the big push to turn that into a huge community, we went out, and so everything was torn down, and we came across the cellar of a building. Something had been knocked down, but there was a cellar, and it was full of like pages and pages of old books and things, and it was just like, this might have been it. This could have been it.
Right.
so down Grove Point Road, the only thing that was
Grove
there
Point
was before it was Circle, it was a shop and go.
Yeah.
And, that was the only place to go. And we would ride our bikes way down there and sneak in sometimes, Grove Point. And then the caretaker would always, chase us off and stuff. But there was the weirdest thing. Me and a couple buddies that's on the team, we used to go shrooming and stuff. And he would come out there, and he actually shot my buddy in the butt with rock salt. Brian, and Brian tells the story all the time. Yeah, he will shoot you.
Yeah.
But his son, when he would get in trouble, he was a buddy of ours, would make him go out there and dig holes. And we were like, why does he make you do that? And he said he thinks Blackbeard's treasure is buried out here somewhere.
I'd heard.
So he was digging holes everywhere because he was always in trouble. And when we got older, about 3-4 years ago, we got access in there. We talked to
4
somebody
years
at
ago.
Great Dane, and they were like absolutely like the caretakers. So we were able to investigate. Courtney's got
That was
a
my
really
first
good story.
One of the first major ones with you guys when I joined the team.
Yeah, she's got a great story about Grove Point Plantation. If you guys ever
Grove
get
Point,
access,
I've been out there many times, so
Yeah.
yes, that's an episode all of its own.
Yeah.
You and
Absolutely.
we can do that. Yeah.
Well, we're going to go ahead and dive on into old Judge Trail. But let's start out. So y'all have not been to Hawaii at all. Have you been to Hawaii, Chris?
I have not.
Okay, great. We're all on the same page here. Oh, well, yeah. Well, JT's barely counts because JT's like, I've been to Hawaii, but I'm like, you were like an infant, so it doesn't count. Your body has been there. Your
consciousness.
was not
yet
there.
to catch up.
But yes, so where is it? It is just on the other side of the Nuuanu Poly Lookout, which is AKA Morgan's Corner. It's only 15 minutes away by car, so just up the road. It's a very popular kind of swimming hole, like sort of deal. But It is called Judd Trail and Jackass Ginger Pond, which is honestly like the best name. And also
So is it just like a mean-spirited redhead who just stands over the pond?
Maybe.
Like, get away from my pond! It's that jackass Ginger.
So here's the thing is that area is really like a great place to go forage ginger, like wild ginger. So I'm wondering if like maybe it's really hard to forage the ginger, or maybe the ginger
It's
is
a
just
special breed of ginger,
maybe.
maybe?
Did some country folk just go out there and say, you know what, we should call this? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it has been deemed the second Morgan's Corner because it rivals it with the amount of accidents and mayhem that has occurred. I was kind of filling Patrick and Courtney in on just how deadly Morgan's Corner was. And there were, in 5 years, 200 accidents just in
2 miles.
2 miles.
Stretch.
And Debria, you can insert this again. 2 miles? Question mark. Debria is our editor, if you don't know who I'm talking about, but she'll insert the fun text above me. So what really makes this deadly is what they call the death curve. And same way with Morgan's Corner. Maybe they should just stop making roads to this area.
Right.
But it is... as the use of automobiles kind of became more common, so did the tendency for speeding, resulting in a lot of auto crashes. And Hawaii's many winding roads kind of became hazardous to drivers who weren't paying attention. And that included the road that ran through Nuuanu up to Pali. Now, in the 1920s, improvements were made to that road. The road was widened to help ease some of the sharp curves, same way that they did with Morgan's Corner, of course, but doesn't make it any less dangerous.
Still on a windy road.
Very, very windy. And today at the fork of Nuuanu Pali Drive, if you veer left, you'll be on Old Pali Road and continue about a half a mile, and the road ends at a fence and a gate. The road was closed here, and traffic was diverted to protect the area from Nuuanu reservoirs 2 and 3. Following Nuuanu Pali Road to the right of the fork, the road takes a more meandering track as it now seemed to follow the topography and the path of the Nuuanu stream. So everything is kind of based around the nature. They're like, oh, look how scenic and pretty it is. Doesn't matter how horrifyingly
We'll have to
dangerous.
twist a road around just to keep from, interrupting.
Exactly.
Or you could just leave it alone.
Right.
Yeah.
But yes, so the winding road in Nuuanu, once used by horses and carriages, became a deadly turn that injured countless numbers of unwary motorists and claimed numerous lives. Just above the hairpin curve at the Lily Pond and waterfall, again, maneuvering around all the pretty sights, I'm like, just hike to it.
Yeah.
I think that may be a better choice. But numerous accidents occurred at a place that newspapers referred to as the death curve. As motorists sped down towards Honolulu from the Pali, they lost control at the sharp turn in the opposite direction coming from Honolulu. Drivers would slow down as they drove through the twists and turns after the country road, club road, and then coming out of the hairpin turn and seeing a short straightaway, they'd step on the gas. In either case, bad brakes or failure to slow down, poor lighting in the area, cars crossing into the center of the road from the opposite direction. There were so many reasons as to why people were wrecking. And a lot of these resulted in death because you're in a mountain. So, of course, if you're wrecking on a small road in the mountains, it's very likely you're not going to make it through that. When their cars careened out of control, they'd often either hit a tree or roll off the road into a 20 to 50 foot drop. It's brutal.
Yikes.
It's brutal. In 1931, the city began work to remove the death curve by Reservoir Number 2, and the reservoir is commonly known today as Ginger Pond or Jackass Ginger. And the newspaper reported that the sharp corner just above the horseshoe curve was being trimmed about 15 feet to provide a wider turn. The entire road improvement was the result of intense flooding, not the deaths, but the flooding during a November rainstorm the year before, and they needed to widen the spillway and divert floodwaters into the Nuuanu stream. Construction of a bridge for traffic to go over the spillway was included in the project. And driving up the Nuuanu Pali Drive, and after coming out of the S-turn, passing the Ilanawai. Again, throughout this whole series, excuse my intense butchering of the Hawaiian terms.
They're going to come back and haunt you.
They will. They will. I'm going to get stomped by a death or a night marcher, not a death marcher.
Death Marcher is a much more frightening thing right
Yeah.
now. Wow.
But the condo's on the right, and then Polihiwa Place on the left of the road bends a little to the left, and you can come to a short concrete bridge. So on the left of the bridge is Reservoir Number 2. The spillway, in case of flooding, runs under the bridge. And just before the bridge is a shoulder area for parking and clearing that leads to a hiking path. So if you still want to go see all those pretty sights, you can hike to it.
Right.
Should have started that way, maybe. But many people say that they get a weird sensation around that bridge. And at the start of the trail, they feel sick or even panicked. And the sharp death curve that claims so many lives and the new spillway created after trimming the road is now the start of a hiking area popular with residents and visitors alike, but it's also the beginning of the Judd Trail. So, death at the bridge. Fun times. So although the traffic through Nuanupali Drive was now lighter, there were still a few accidents resulting in injuries and deaths. And one of the biggest ones was on Memorial Day of 1955. Shinguru Sakaguchi died in a crash just before midnight. His car smashed into the bridge at Ginger Pond after failing to make a curve above Morgan's Corner. So
There you go.
then there was a suicide at Jackass Ginger. Multiple, actually. There were only 2 incidents that have been reported, so could be more, but there were only 2 incidents that were reported suicides in the area. A decomposed body was found hanging at Jackass Ginger Pond. And in June 1991, a badly decomposed body was found hanging from a tree just beyond the falls at Jackass Ginger Pond. The body was thought to be a suicide of a homeless man from Date Street who was recently evicted. He reportedly disappeared 3 months before he was found, but that's just on the trail. Now, murder at Judd Trail Bridge, there's murder too.
It just gets worse.
It does.
yeah.
It just gets
Wow.
worse.
It's like, oh, by the way,
Why not?
in case you thought that we're going to stop there.
Exactly. So on September 13th, 1986, the body of 26-year-old Clayton D. Toshi was found hanging from the bridge located along Lower Nuanupali Drive near Jackass Ginger Pond. A cable looped around his neck and tied to the bridge suggested he might have committed suicide. The whereabouts of Clayton's car remained a mystery, and no one could account for how he got to where his body was found. Clayton Darwin Toshi, who lived in Kaimuki, was a sales clerk at Petland, which, if you don't know Petland, that's a whole different
I've heard some
true crime
stories
sort of
about
story.
Headland, yeah.
At Ala Moana Center, he was reportedly last seen leaving a nearby Kiamoku Street bar alone on Tuesday, September 9th, and his body was found hanging from the bridge around 7 a.m. Wednesday morning. Despite his bare feet and his hands being bound in front of him with a towel, police considered this to be a suicide. That doesn't seem possible.
Bound?
Why would you bound your own hands for committing
Right.
suicide?
That seems...
Meh.
Maybe I don't know.
I mean, that seems wrong.
Meh.
Yeah. So a notice was put in the newspaper that the police were looking for Clayton's car, a 1982 Plymouth Sapporo 2-door sedan. And the car was silver with a black roof, hood, and trunk, and highly polished, they said. On Saturday, Clayton's car was found. Airport parking attendants making routine checks for overdue rentals and abandoned cars had logged Clayton's car as being parked before 5 a.m. Wednesday.
That just screams murder at that point.
It literally...
Use the airport. Come on now.
Well, yeah. Well, so, and the thing is his body was found at 7 a.m. on Wednesday, but his car was found
At 5.
yeah, that doesn't...
Nope, doesn't jive.
That's not tracking. Anyways, they notified police that the car matched the description published in yesterday's Advertiser. Detectives said that Clayton's wallet was in the car, but his keys and other objects were missing, heightening suspicions of foul play. Another request by the police was printed in the newspaper asking for any information on when the car could have pulled into the airport and parked. And on Tuesday, September 16th, 1 week after his death, police classified Clayton Toshi's hanging as probable homicide. Nearly 2 months later, on November 11, 1986, police released a sketch of a man who may have been involved in the murder of Clayton Toshi. Police said that Clayton was last seen by an acquaintance between 1 and 2 a.m. on September 10th, when Clayton and an unidentified Caucasian-looking man were seen entering Clayton's car. That's not enough detail. We're going to need a little bit more information. It was parked at the Kalakaua Avenue, on Kalakaua Avenue, near Queen's Surf. The man was described as being in his late 20s to early 30s, about 5 feet 10 inches, has a medium build, light-colored hair, and a fair complexion. He was wearing blue jeans and a light-colored long-sleeve shirt. Nothing more was heard about Clayton Toshi except for a January 2nd, 1987 recap on the 22 unsolved killings on Oahu during 1986. They say that a place will carry a psychic imprint of a person that died there, and this might be the reason why people get such a creepy or uncomfortable feeling around these areas. Now, some paranormal encounters include, especially near the bridge, people get a deep sense of dread and sorrow. People who are sensitive to spirits specifically have a hard time being anywhere near it. There have been reports of people having mental breakdowns, panic attacks, feeling an overwhelming sense that they're going to die, especially if they're psychic. And there have also been reports of seeing multiple men hanging in trees. Feels very reminiscent of the Aokigahara.
Right. I was just about to say that. There's something very familiar in the sense of that dread and that overwhelming sensation, and then the hangings, because hangings is such a specific type of death.
Right.
It's so very. It's not the most common of suicides, and when you hear somebody committing suicide by hanging, you're like, whoa, that's beyond impulsive. You don't rapidly hang yourself.
Right.
It doesn't happen because of an opportunity. It's a plan. It's an action that takes steps to complete, especially if you're going to a place specifically to do it. And that's interesting that people get that sensation, because it seems like, and we talked about this at the first Morgan's Corner, is it seems like the land itself has just bad juju. That the land itself may be sacred, and thereby all of this building of bridges and putting down roads and cutting into it has made the place unsafe for people to traverse.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting because I feel like there's a couple things going on here. Because with Morgan's Corner, what our consensus is that it felt like, because it was the site of a massive battle, for basically there was like a battle of like 1,200 soldiers that were fighting in that one area. It felt like almost that same logic, maybe there's something to do with the land. Maybe the land's revolting against people, and that's why so much is going wrong in this one area. But this is making me think, because there were also 2 suicides reported in Morgan's Corner, only 15 minutes away. Is there not some type of a vibe? You know how with Aokigahara, they say like when you walk in there, you start to get disoriented. You start to feel a deep sorrow, a feeling of hopelessness and whatnot. And that's why, there have been hikers that are said to be completely mentally sound going into it, and then they never come back out. I wonder if there's not something going on kind of like that with this area, because it's still technically the same mountain in general. It's just 15 minutes down the road, down the mountain. So I wonder if maybe that's also some sort of sign with the land spirits that are just being punishing. I don't know. That's so.
Well, there's even the concept of like ley lines, and just that energy that pulses through an area that is the governing force of the area that leads to people committing atrocities or doing away with themselves. So it's an interesting concept that this little stretch of road, it's the same road. The Morgan's Corner was a road of just tumult and murder and mayhem, and then just 15 minutes away, you've got the same stories, the same kinds of stories happening, in this concentrated area. They're
all suicide by hanging too, which is
really
bizarre.
Again, maybe it's there's a cultural thing going on that we're not
privy to,
right? But yeah, hanging death is, especially doing it yourself, because that's mostly strangulation. You're probably not breaking your neck. You're probably
slow death.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a painful death. It's and with that kind of suffering, when somebody suffers, especially at the moment of their death, that suffering absolutely bleeds into the environment. And oftentimes when somebody or something suffers into death, there's a track to the point at which they cross, or they, whatever your theory is. And that door, when it opens, is basically, right on the other side are all these things wanting to come in. It's like you're on your way out. They want to come in, and there's all this food left from your suffering, all this energy and all this power left by you, hanging and knowing you're going to die. That concept, a lot of people, when they think about like sacrifice as a part of ritual, they don't realize that the real key to sacrifice, the ritual itself, is so that the door between worlds is being opened through the ritual, not the moment of death, but through getting the vibe, the sensation, the understanding that the next world is coming, because you're basically drawing energy from the fact that somebody or something is about to cross through. And then when the sacrifice happens, the door opens, and you have access to energies and powers and things that are right on the other side. And given the long history of humanity, we've kind of learned not to do it. We kind of stopped doing it, because it was a common practice in almost every faith. Even Christianity, in its early phases, were sacrificing animals and were a part of that tradition. But I think that there's a volatile, reaction and interaction that can come from that kind of behavior. So over time, we're like, maybe this isn't a good idea.
Right.
Seems like every time we do this, we get some kind of mayhem that befalls us.
So if y'all were going there to investigate, what would your thought process be of like what's going on haunting wise?
Give us tips.
Well, to me personally, besides the history of it, I would find out why these people were going there in the first place, and it could be something to do with like a possession.
Interesting.
So sometimes some people may be feeling a certain way. So I think going in there having a positive vibe would help. So maybe, I'm not saying these people did that committed suicide. We're having these kind of thoughts, and then the possession or the voice or whatever they were hearing on that trail or whatnot is telling them, yeah, do it. To me, I try to keep a strong faith of what's going on. I try not to go in with any negative thoughts or, anything that presence or entity can use against me, right? Like I try to put up a brick wall a lot of times when there's a supposedly demonic or anything where people have committed suicide for whatever reason. I try to put up that brick wall and try not to let them get inside my head. So I think what I would do, definitely carry protection with you, whatever it is. I carry St. Michael with me because he's an ass kicker, and I want him with me.
It.
I keep him
I
with
believe
me.
it.
And so I keep him with me, and Courtney, I know she does little things too to help her. Some of the things you do, Courtney, like.
I'm a big believer in selenite.
I love selenite. It's
Selenite
great.
is like my number one. I have a big old rod of it in my case.
Right.
Everywhere I go, it goes with me. Just something I carry. Yeah. I feel like body cameras.
Interesting.
Take you some body cameras.
Yeah.
That's a good
way,
idea.
Even if you want to go for it, have one on your back, have one on your front. That way, whatever you're seeing that you can't see behind you, they'll probably capture it.
Axon.
So I say go with the body camera.
Axon, you want to sponsor some paranormal investigators? This is your time.
There you go.
I love that idea, actually. That's really fascinating, because if there is something that's happening around you, you could always watch back the footage.
Right, sure.
And
Yep, exactly.
That's great.
Because a lot of times, what gave us the idea is a lot of times if you get in that little tug, or if
Right.
you get in that little feeling, or somebody is like, "Ooh, dude, something was right behind you," it'll capture it. So we've been lucky and captured a few things by having, double body cams
cameras.
on,
I love that.
and it helps. So
Jay, we should order some Axon body cameras and try that
Or
out.
a 360 cam.
Oh, that's
Or
true.
360 cam.
That's
There you
true.
go.
Yeah, we used to have a 360 camera, and that would be crazy to have that set up and just see what happens. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you that like going into a place like that, it's very possible that people are getting swayed or things of that nature. Because we were talking about that with Morgan's Corner Part 1. A lot of people report seeing shadow figures and these kind of lower residual energies and the things that are desperate to have some type of identity. And this is not to scare people if you see shadow people, like we said before. A lot of times they're just there, whatever. But they can also be dangerous at times because they can get so desperate. They are looking for that feed. They want to be fat ghosts, but they're not fat ghosts. They're skinny ghosts.
Right.
They, Chris,
and
Chris loves a good, well-fed
Yeah,
ghost.
exactly.
So
Feed the ghost. Yeah, just be careful. The concept being there are so many people who have experienced completely fictional ghosts. They've seen and experienced and had these interactions with, in the late 80s and early 90s, the number of people who encountered Freddy Krueger.
true.
The people who swear that they saw him, that he was in their room, and technically, if you're paying attention to our long-going Hat Man series, Freddy Krueger is a Hat Man. He's a shadowy figure wearing a fedora, and it's because our consciousness adopts certain fears and certain notions, and then those spirits that are around are like, oh, you want to see Freddy Krueger? Okay. You will interact if I look like the thing you want. You see a shadow and you're like, it's a devil. It'll do everything it can to be demonic for you. So it's like, oh, okay, this is the communication. You sent to me, devil, and I'm go, okay, I'll do it. If you're like, it's Abe Lincoln, okay, I'm Honest Abe. Here's my top hat. Let's go. So it is one of those things where spirits are highly opportunistic, especially the shadow forms, because they've lost the identity that they had in life, or they were never alive to begin with. And when going with positive energy, going in with a positive mindset, going in with faith guarding you, having these items that bolster you and strengthen you, give you an opportunity to avoid feeding the ghosts, giving the ghosts something to interact with, because that's really all of it. All the warnings we ever have are about forming the ghost bond. Making the ghost or the spirit or the entity or whatever it is, giving it some identity that doesn't necessarily matter to them. They're not interested in what they look like. They're interested in you. They're in connecting and being connected. So it's so interesting when you come across stories where you're like, oh well, this place makes people feel despair, and if you have despairing thoughts, you're feeding the spirit. You're giving that spirit.
Right.
That makes all the more danger to the area and to the element. Weird. And they never caught the guy who.
Is it a cold case file now? That's what I was thinking about. It's got to be a cold case file.
It is. They last time they brought it up, it was an unsolved mysteries sort of, like one of those offshoot unsolved mystery type shows. That was the last time it was brought up, but no, never found him. But so
my guess is he got on a plane.
Yeah. Well, so y'all missed the serial killer episode that we just filmed.
Oh, man.
It's not uncommon with these with Hawaii. They don't find the killers, and we were talking
Because
about
they're probably tourists.
That's exactly what we're saying.
Exactly.
We're saying destination killers.
It's actually
Opportunity.
right. I'm like, and I'm not endorsing this. Do not say that I'm endorsing this, but if I was going to kill somebody.
Yeah, she picks up her tiny shovel.
Yes.
Specifically. But yeah, if I was going to kill somebody, I'd go somewhere desolate that I was never going to go back to. And they probably never find you, especially thinking about, this was later or earlier, the 80s and stuff. It was so easy to
Good
get
luck
away.
doing that now.
Right.
With security and your background check.
Yeah, CCTV, all the good stuff, you know.
Cameras everywhere.
Yeah, it's
No
not
more
a good
victims
time
of
to be a serial
opportunity.
killer.
Nope.
Well, there's still. Let's stop talking about how to be an effective serial killer. I'm sitting here going, well, actually, you could. No, you can't. Stop it. Stop it.
We're not
Get a
serial
hobby.
killers. No, we just like to go where they went. It's fine. But, you
The
know,
psychological part.
right. It's interesting.
It's a puzzle.
Yeah, but no, they didn't find it. Yeah, Hawaii's got a bad track record. They never found the Kauai serial killer.
Oh, you missed the story. We just told a story where the killer killed a woman, went to jail. They were like, he's not that bad. Let him out. He goes out. He kills a woman. They put him back in jail.
He
They're like,
admits to it too.
oh yeah, he turns and pleads guilty. And then they're like, you've done your time. Gets out, kills
How
a third.
long ago did he just?
Yeah,
How
it
long was
was-
he in jail for?
Not long.
Not long. Not long at all. And,
yeah.
and it was so upsetting because every time it was like, who is on the parole board going, kill two people? Yeah.
What's one more?
Well,
It's a 3-strike system.
well, and the thing is the last time he had to beg. He was like, "Please lock me up.
Yeah, he
do
went-
not let me out," because
Right.
he was aware that what he was doing was bad.
Went to
And
the
so-
hospital. It was like, I'm going to do damage, and they're like, we'll keep you under observation. You're fine. Are you sure? You're fine. I really hate that woman. You're fine. And then he goes and kills somebody.
He does.
And you're like, oh, that's not good. He's a homicidal maniac.
Exactly. So Hawaii's got a lot of stuff
Is he in
going
jail
on.
now?
No, he's
He
dead.
died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But he did die in jail.
No, he,
Didn't
technically he was incarcerated,
Was
but
did he die or was he killed?
he was
No,
he
he
was
had an
dead
illness.
from illness. He
Yeah,
although they said it was an undisclosed.
Undisclosed illness.
You know how he died? Like this. No, okay. I'm kidding. I know that's bad. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You're in the right company for those types of jokes. But it's funny. No, it's not funny for these people. It's not funny, but it's just interesting that I can't wait to visit this area just to see what it actually feels like. Hopefully we make it back alive because there's a lot of
Dude.
Are they still building onto this section? Mm-hmm. Why?
yeah, you can go to it. It's really easy. Yeah,
Well, apparently it's a very beautiful area.
it is.
Okay.
Not
Did it
that-
ever occur to someone it's too beautiful. Let's not mess with it before it pisses something off.
well, that's why
Well-
the ginger jackass is there.
Yeah,
Get out of here!
yeah. It's just
Wait,
jackass ginger.
What if he has an
over
Irish
there.
accent? Get out of here!
Or it could be groundskeeper Willie.
What?
Madison, the definition.
Oh, why it's called the jackass?
All
Ginger
right.
jackass.
Why it is called Jackass Ginger Pool. Originally named Kauilanawai, or Tranquil Water, the pool was renamed after a donkey that lived in the area nearly 100
Aw.
years ago, and as well as the plentiful ginger plants that line the riverside. That's
The
cute.
donkey eat the ginger.
Of course. I'm sure he did.
The jackass ginger. It's the ginger
that.
for the
I
jackass.
love that. That's a
That's
great,
very sweet. Although Tranquil Pool
not so
became
tranquil.
jackass ginger.
You know, I mean, we don't make the rules. We don't name the things, but yeah, that's cute, though.
It
well,
is
I mean,
cute
they couldn't
that
call
it
it
was a jackass.
ginger ass. So
Couldn't they call it donkey ginger or burrow ginger? Or are there not better words than jackass?
The hee-haw ginger pool.
Feels like you're just asking for trouble. Come
Yeah.
on down to Jackass Ginger Paul.
Yeah, that's
See
okay.
how long you can hold your breath.
And then it became very dark very
And that's
quickly.
very dark.
Yeah.
And that's just it. On top of it, it's like, oh, that's cute. Why are there people hanging in the trees?
Right. Well, we're going to be going there. JT and I will be going there.
Segway.
So I'll let you know if I see any hanging people.
Tell us all about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're gonna have a good time. We're driving in a big Jeep too, which I'm very
Fun.
concerned.
You're gonna do some off-roading.
Oh yeah,
Kind of like a perfect getaway.
right,
movie.
right.
Yeah,
seen
that
that
movie?
movie?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love it.
I mean, yeah, we're gonna have a big Jeep, so we'll see. Hopefully, we don't run off the road, because that was the biggest thing with these roads is they were saying if there's a big truck coming at you, you kind of can't do anything about it. That's
Excuse me.
oh yeah.
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 I hope 18-wheelers aren't allowed.
Mm,
They probably have concessions for size. you know.
Right. That would make sense.
I would imagine. I can't. And the island is not that big.
It's not.
On top of everything else. And something also worth noting is that there is worldwide a belief that most ghosts cannot be on the water. That and a lot of people believe that even moats were early deterrents for ghosts that can't cross over. Some people believe that the haint blue color is supposed to be like a water barrier. The idea of it. So islands, especially islands that are isolated in a vast amount of ocean, are magnets for every spirit that had died at sea. They come ashore, with the exception of ghost ships. Those interesting anomalies, which are also hyper powered because they are keeping the spirits off of the water. So it's an interesting thing to think that these small isolated islands in the middle of a vast ocean are just like the pinpoint of all this supernatural energy. All this paranormal activity is just kind of pushing down onto them.
So do you think that the reason why, besides the hanging suicides, the reason why there's so many spirits hanging from the trees is because they can't land in the water? They gotta go.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, hanging from a bridge is really interesting because I'm not familiar with that notion, because we get a lot of suicides even here in Savannah on the bridge. We get a lot of people
that last week.
and they jump to their deaths. That is a common trope of tall bridges. I'm racking my brain for people hanging themselves from bridges, because the amount of work to hang yourself from a bridge.
That's hard.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine going through the trouble of that.
You'd have to rig it, I guess, underneath the bridge and then climb back up
and then throw yourself.
Exactly. That
seems
seems
like
or
a lot of
choke.
work.
Doing the choke,
Right.
which again is heartbreaking in a lot of ways to think of somebody being in that much turmoil that they will face that much pain.
Right.
Well, and I think a lot of times they're by themselves.
Of course.
So again, you guys are traveling together. Just kind of look for little things.
Yeah, pay attention to each other too.
He's getting really irritable, or she's not as happy as just little things, and you can tell. So when we're on investigations, we can tell, hey, you okay? Because you get a certain look sometimes, or they're getting aggravated or roll their eyes, and typically, we joke around a lot, so we always try to pull each other over and go, hey, let's go outside and get some air or something, because you can tell when somebody is not getting a possession, but they're getting irritated because there's something, and 9 times out of 10 they'll tell you, hey, I saw something, or that wasn't right. So just kind of keep an eye on each other. That's one thing. We never investigate alone.
It's not a good idea.
It's not.
Because again, some could tell you, hey, why don't you jump off this cliff or something, and I don't know, it plays with your mind.
Yeah,
It's true. It's true. Yeah, we'll be there. I'm the most susceptible of anything to ghost hangovers. That's for real.
Those
The
are
ghost
terrible.
We call them paranormal hangovers. Yep,
Yeah.
we hate them.
Yeah, after Washington, Georgia, after the Estes methods, I was like, I might die.
That was a pretty insane night.
That was a lot. But yeah, so we'll keep y'all updated on how it goes, and we'll especially keep y'all updated.
Cool.
With how it is. But thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode, and thank you to Courtney and Patrick for joining us today and telling us about their experiences and giving us their 2 cents on the Morgan's Corner 2, which is super fun. But hopefully you enjoy the rest of Halloween. JT and I will be in Hawaii, so if you have caught on with that. But yeah, if you want to actually see these locations, we're going to be live streaming for the Para Junkies over on Patreon, at Morgan's Corner, at Jackass Ginger Pond, all that jazz. So if you want to see that, go ahead and hop on over to Patreon so you can get access to all that. And of course, with all the other fun things you get. So with that, though, my name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susi.
And stay spooky, y'all.